just go ahead. We know physical abuse is typically the physical attacks, hitting, punching, slapping, and all that. Sexual abuse is just as the term denotes. It is sexually being forced to have sex against your will or consent. And emotional abuse has a lot more to the abuser intimidating, demeaning the victim, sort of trying to get them to think less of themselves. It's an attack towards their self-identity and what they think about themselves. And I personally think psychological abuse is very close to the emotional abuse piece of identifying or stating the difference of the two. Let me just get this up. Where would we be without technology?
You'd probably be ahead of you.
And there is also economic abuse, which is actually a very significant reason why victims tend not to leave their abuser. And socially, we think that a person who is victimized, they're sticking around because of love. That is true. Yes, they do. They do have feelings for the abuser. They do love their abuser. But a lot of times, it's much more than that. The economic part of it, the attachment, has such a large a degree as to why they're staying. Because you'll find that the abuser had been able to take control of the finances and the situation, and from the countless women I've counseled and met with, you'll be amazed how many of them had no bank accounts, had no access to debit cards, even when it came to shopping for clothes, they didn't do that on their own. So there's, the abusers tend to try to take away any form of independence. So you find that it's not as easy for them to just walk away as most people will tell them to. Why don't you just leave? But it's the fear and the intimidation, and that's the psychological part of it. It's that constant pouring in of, you can't make it without me. No one out here cares about you. And then the psychological piece is the detachment from family and friends, because the abusers are really good at having the victim or the survivor detach themselves from family and friends. Over a period of time, they somehow start to believe that this person is the only person they need, and that's it, And no matter how much family and friends try to intervene, they just, it's like trying to take a sledgehammer to a concrete wall that has steel behind of it. You'll get through the wall, but you can't get past the steel. And so, it's a very tough situation, but a lot of it has to do, I think, with the psychological component of it, that willpower, and that person sort of, not sort of, but they lose touch of who they are. They allow their identity, to just be taken over by someone else, And so, okay, so let's try this. If it doesn't play with sound, we'll just keep it moving. Here we go. Yeah. Oops, my hand hit something. Sorry. Let me walk away.
Answer me. What is going out there? Where are you going? Where do you think you're going? I'm not going with you.
as I looked at videos, that one was just, I did not expect that at the end. You know, you'd think that young man was coming over there and getting ready to just stand up for her and said, look, you know, I'm sick of this. You know, it's time to just, you know, let her go. Just come on, let's get out of here. But he actually just went ahead and give him the club. And so I just thought that was really interesting because, you know, that is what happens when we are aware of someone who is being abused and we do nothing. And the thing is, a lot of times family members know. You know, they know, and what I hear family members say is that, well, we've tried, we've spoken to her many times, and it's right. You know, you can't really force an adult to leave a situation that they're unwilling to leave. But, you know, I always say, we all will say what we would do if we're in that situation, and it would be a different position. I would put him through hell. The police would go over there so often. I mean, I would do so much to just, you know, I don't know if it's just embarrassment or shame, but something, you know. But I just thought that video was interesting. And I've seen how there's such an insensitivity towards victims of abuse. One of my clients, while I was at PADV, she was a 40-year-old woman from India, single mom, and she had married into an arranged marriage situation, much older in life. And once she married the guy and moved to the US, the abuse started right away. You know, he didn't find her to be as appealing as he would have wanted to. And it was just horrible. But eventually she had gotten, I guess, it wasn't naturalization, but, you know, documentation so she can travel. And he kept it away from her. And he had a lawyer who was actually lying and helping him with this ruse, you know. And so one of the things I did was like, you know, you have a right to what is yours. And so I started this thing with her, getting her on the phone, getting legal aid, and eventually they, you know, and the thing is that there's help, but it's to get them to the help. And that's our part. If we can get them to the help, you know, if that's all you can do something. And so I got her to the help until she got a court date, and she was like, you gotta come with me. You gotta come. And part of what I've had to do while I was a PADE is sometimes is coach them. I don't coach them to give them answers to what's going on in their heart. They have the story. They are the best ones to articulate what has happened to them in their life. But what I do is, you know, I help them find confidence in speaking about what has happened, because it's hard, you know. And as we know, the court systems can re-victimize a person with the severity of how the questions are and how it's structured. And so, but in her situation, luckily, I think we just had a judge that was just an angel from heaven. And it was a guy. It was a guy, and he put the hammer to that guy. He gave him, I think, 7 days to surrender her documents, or he would have to come and deal with his own immigration issue. So that was a blessing. So once that happened for her, she immediately was able to make plans to travel. She couldn't leave the US, but she wanted to get to Seattle, Washington, which I think she said was where she wanted to be because her sister was in Canada. Yeah, so that's just one of the things. If anything, it's an encouragement to, I know we have boundaries, but sometimes there's a little bit extra that you can do where you're not breaking any boundary violations, you know? And so in that sense, that was a little bit extra, I think, and it helped her. So this slide is just pretty much talking about some of the things that I already mentioned about violence can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, psychological, and there are there's no discriminatory features when it comes to domestic violence or intimate partner, you know, violence. When it comes to religion, cultural background, well, sexual orientation is what it is. But when it comes to economics and social class, none. There was a well-known NBA player, Atlanta NBA player's wife who was in PADV, I've had pastors' wives in PADV. I've had teachers in PADV. So you'll be surprised. You know, one lady from very young, I had a mother and daughter at PADV. You know, it was just incredible. You know, the mom had a history and the daughter had a history, and I just couldn't wrap my mind around that. But you'll find, this is one of those things that, you know, but it's not, it's, you know, the victim has their own situation or psychological, I would say, issues that needs to be worked out just as much as the abuser. Here I am trying to explain, which I did, the origin of the terminologies with domestic violence versus intimate partner dating, and you know, the family structure, and going back to the 1970s versus today, the new language. So we're gonna go forward, move forward. And so statistics, of course, I'm sure many of you guys are aware, we have more reported cases of domestic abuse among women than men, but men are victims too, they just underreport. And I'm sure we know some of the obvious reasons why. One thing that for some reason don't hit a lot of the statistics, but you'll find it in a lot more peer review articles, is the fact that you have quite a bit of unplanned pregnancies that come out of sexual assault. And you know, when you do a lot of these, you know, general statistical searches, that's one element that you don't find reported on a lot. But if you do researches that, when you do searches that go into more of the research line of things, you find that there's quite a number of pregnancies that come out of sexual abuse. And it's alarming and it's sad, you know? And so that's one component. I didn't put it here. So here's some statistics. We have even high school students that are having a lot of issues with sexual violence. And what I'm finding is that this happens based on, you know, there's a lot of factors. We can't generalize. But one of the things that, you know, research is showing is a lot of it is learned behaviors. When the kids are seeing their parents in those situations, whether it's the boy or the girl, male or female, they tend to sort of gravitate towards abusive relationships or abusive behaviors. And so, you know, it starts at home. It starts at home. And so you have, you know, high school students, girls and boys as well, that are getting into these relationships where they are actually being abused. It's happening, you know. So it's just one of those things that we're looking at, and we want to talk to girls. You know, there's a focus on abstinence and all this stuff, but what about teaching them what it means to have healthy social relationships? You know, what it means to have a friend and to allow yourself to get to know them. Not rush, of course, we always want to say not rush into sex and intimacy, but teaching them what healthy relationships are and what healthy boundaries look like, you know. And so I would love for schools to start having some sort of integration where we're teaching these kinds of things. But, you know, you'll be surprised how much pushback you get by parents. A friend and I, we partnered last year, and we're doing just that with the Boys and Girls Club. Was very fortunate for the Boys and Girls Club to be willing to have us come. And so we have a program we started called Journeys. And I told her, yes, let's just keep it, because Journeys means many things to everyone. And so in our Journeys program, we teach etiquette, we teach social skills, sometimes it's homework. So we started it I believe last spring, and I haven't gotten into the part of the program where I'll do one-on-one therapy. I've done a lot of group sessions with the kids, And so they're hoping that I can start doing one-on-ones. So we'll see how that works out, because it's a tough crowd. And it's in Adamsville. I don't know if you know the area of town. Yeah, so it's a tough crowd. A lot of the kids are, you know, they don't have a lot of, I would say, healthy parental figures. Can I use, I don't curse, but I just wanna, so I was called a B one time, and I think he was in the 6th grade.
A beautiful person.
And so you know what I mean by the B. Yeah, and he was in the 6th grade, and he didn't say it to me as an insult. He said it as, this is what I call girls. Yeah, and that's a 6th grader, so that says a lot. So obviously he's hearing someone referring to the women around him as B's. And so I had to pull him on the side and talk to him about that, you know. Some of the activities I have them work on, they'll draw, because you know, you guys know kids can express themselves in many ways, and drawing is just a great way. And so I've had some of the kids draw guns. The teenagers, you get some interesting things out of them. So right now it's an experimental program. They're hoping to get it funded, and so they're making it very difficult. So keep me in your prayers. Effects of domestic violence. You know, I just grab stuff here and just put it on the slide, because I know based on observation and based on reporting, what some of the clients that I have worked with have reported. And fortunately, I've not, oh, this is touch screen. That's good. Fortunately, I've not had a client that died as a result of this, but I know of that happening, okay? And so, you know, you have a lot of this. One of the things that I saw at PABV was a lot of substance abuse associations with the violence, a lot of eating disorders, a lot of mental disorders, a lot of depression and bipolar, depression, a lot of that, anxiety, of course. So I didn't have any dissociative states there, but I did have 2 clients back at Chris Kids who had sexual abuse history. One young lady, the first one I had, which I thought it was a remarkable experience, she was raised up in the, bless you, what is the religion that, what do you call it, Scientology? Yes, yes. So she was raised in Scientology culture and religion, and, but she was sexually abused by her father at the same time. So she had a lot of, you know, just a lot of confusion, a lot of trauma in her life. And when she came of age, she decided that she wanted to pull away from the religion, and they had her excommunicated. She explained that's how it is. Once you decide you want to leave, they act like you don't exist. And they tell your family member that's how you're treated, like you don't exist. So, you know, you had a young woman who was pretty much just abandoned. And so she was dealing with that. But what I found with her disassociation is whenever she is triggered, any stressful situation, and it happened in a session one time, just the anxiety and the stress of talking about her history. And there was one particular incident with a best friend. Her and her best friend went to visit the family, and she loves to debate. And if her point isn't received, she's gonna argue you to death. You know, she's one of those people that won't pull back. And unfortunately, her best friend's brother is also a debater, and he wasn't backing down. And so she was very upset, and it became one of those things where it was disruptive to the whole family gathering. People were walking out, you know, just messy, like you've seen that on TV. And the next day, and so she's talking about this, and then she just blanks out, you know, and I just stayed silent, didn't interrupt. and she came back, and she asked, and she was asking me questions. I said, well, you were in the middle of telling me about what happened. And she said, oh, I'm sorry, and that was it. So, and so she described that, those are some of the things that will happen to her sometimes, that she just go, don't remember, but can't remember what she was talking about up to that point, so it's just interesting, the experiences that you'll have in your journey as a therapist. I saw this and I thought this was really interesting when it speaks to the exposure of violence around kids and how it affects their life. One of the things that I learned here, and I use it quite a bit with my clients, is understanding where the trauma starts. You gotta go back there, because the coping mechanisms the child learned and developed at that age, they continue that all through their life until they learn that it's not healthy. If the child was running in the closet, as an adult, they're gonna still be a runner. It's just that they're not gonna be running to a closet, they're gonna run to something else, you see? And so yeah, it's a form, if you look at all the word cloud, it's a form of imprisonment and all this different stuff, and the other things that can develop out of them not being able to cope with the trauma and the effects of either having directly been physically abused or just witnessing it. So here, I know it's a very busy slide, but I just think it's important that as therapists, and I'll make sure you guys get this, that that you can talk to the kids about their experience. Finding the language to help them express themselves. You would, talk to both the child and the parent about, planning how you can ask the child, what is it that mommy or daddy is doing that tells you they're upset? And in their own words, they can tell you, they're yelling, they're screaming, daddy's pulling mommy's hair, mommy's crying, or sometimes they'll say, I don't see, but I hear things falling, I hear things breaking, I can hear mommy crying, And if the child can't say it, you can say, can you draw? I know, and one of the things that my supervisor told me, sometimes you check in with the child to see if they know why they're there. Some kids, sometimes their parents don't tell them why they're coming to the counseling center. And so you can check in with them and find out if they know why they're there. And then if they don't, then of course, unfortunately, the parent left it up to you to tell them. And so you work through that. So you guys, these are some helpful tips in doing that. And ways to help them become happy. Find out what it is that the child likes to do, and encourage the parent. If the parent who is being abused, it's really hard for that parent to think about the child and meeting the child's need. But you can encourage them to do that. Find ways to keep the child happy and a little bit distracted while they're getting the help they need through therapy. This is some more about that, talking to the parent, and later on I'll talk about safety planning. So, all right, so addressing myths. You guys, what are some myths that you have heard or currently believe when it comes to victims of abuse?
The woman did something to make him mad.
Oh yeah, that's a popular one.
One is looking at SES, because people just think that there is usually from lower SES or mid SES families, when in actuality it happens a lot in that upper SES and in your churches and things of that nature, but it's just not reported until it's super extreme.
Yes. And it's unfortunate when it happens to a public figure, then everybody knows about it, right? And so it happens. But if you think about it, they have so much more to lose. They have so much more to lose. I mean, they lose, everybody loses, everyone loses. But the fact that in their mind, they have so much more to lose, it increases the possibility of this happening so often it goes unreported
They don't
or
wanna get the
undetected.
lifestyle.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. And so, but someone who is probably struggling, who really don't have a whole lot, to lose or go for, is more than likely they'll end up in a program where they're seeking help because they know this is hell, and I gotta get out of this hell. Or the mom will decide that she can't continue having her kids exposed to this, versus someone who has access and money, so. But these are just some of the myths that I put on there about whether or not substance abuse and finances and unemployment is the cause, and based on what I've read and what I know is there's a lot of factors, but you can't just say that's the cause, because whether a person isn't an alcoholic or they're broke or have money, there's still abuse. It's more deeper than that, it's more deeper than that. It goes down to, a lot of times it's childhood. I wanna say really, a lot of times that's what's going on there. But yes, there's factors that cause, for people to not be able to work through problems. Yes, we can't ignore those factors. And women who stay in violent situations are not good mothers. That's a generalization as well. Yeah. And survivors can leave their abusers if they want to. And so that was pretty much like what you were saying. So I listed quite a bit of stuff there. And it's, going back to what I'm saying, the economic dependence, sometimes it's religious beliefs, sometimes they focus on the good qualities of the individual, the husband or the boyfriend. And sometimes, they just don't want to deprive their kids of the parent, having that, that structure, although it's not healthy. So there's a lot of reasons why women don't leave or men don't leave, because it's not just always the woman who is being abused. So I wanted to stop here and allow Erica to join